I will fear no evil. I will fear no evil, for you are with me. My rod and my staff, they comfort my staff. They comfort my staff. They comfort my staff. My rod and my staff, they comfort my staff. And you are with me. You lead me to lie down in green pastures. You lead me to walk beside still waters. You are my shepherd, I shall not want. You are my shepherd. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. I will fear no evil, for you are.
The eternal self wishes to feel nurtured and protected, to understand and to feel understood, to explore, create, to love, and to be loved. The eternal self wishes to be free. We wish to share our truth and wisdom as wounded healers and way showers. To send a message that it's time to wake up and remember our galactic origins, our authentic human identities. This requires courage and self-responsibility. Are you ready to begin your journey back to the eternal self? Hey, welcome to the Truth Pulse. My name is SonYA, and we also have Trinity joining us today. Thank you, Trinity. And we hope that all of you are hanging in there as the Ascension process is deepening for all of us, which also means the planet is traversing closer and closer towards full disclosure of the negative alien agenda to shed light upon their planned takeover and enslavement of humanity. Now, we have received word that much dismantling of the inner landscapes within the dimensional realms is taking place. In other words, the reversal architecture and the phantom spaces are being removed, which means our Law of One Crystal Star Guardian teams have been busy inserting the correct organic creation codes to repair the damage that has been taken place. And so this is also allowing them and any of us who are assisting to continue our work in finding and retrieving lost souls that had been held prisoner, such as trafficking victims and others. So, do you have anything to add to that at all, Trinity?
I just want to say that although on the outerscape it may look very chaotic and very, very strange and crazy with everything that we are witnessing and observing at the moment, with this pandemic and
Yeah.
you know, the masks and the vaccinations and everything that is thrown at us,
Hmm.
it's good news that actually the architecture is changing and the frequencies are changing and the plasmas are coming. And so, although it's not maybe visible yet on the material plane, the good news is that in time it'll become visible, and the the energies are supporting those who are aligning
Yeah.
with truth, those who are aligning with disclosure, those who are really courageous to stand up to this, whatever is thrown at us currently
Hmm.
from the governments, and those who are pulling the strings above them. So it's good news. So I just wanted to reassure us all that although it seems very chaotic and desperate, and the future seems bleak, but no, it's
Yeah.
actually all changing, and the time is coming. So
Mm.
so just take heart, be patient. All of us need to sort of just keep centering ourselves and trusting that all is under control.
Mm.
So I just wanted to add that.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's good advice for all of us. Thank you for that. Now, before we get into our discussion today, we wanted to acknowledge a few people that assist us in order to create and present these podcasts. So we'd like to say that the ascension and disclosure information that we use, unless otherwise stated, is taken from the Energetic Synthesis Ascension Glossary. So thank you to Lisa and Tomas for your service as our ascension guides, and for all of your hard work that you have put into creating and providing the helpful material from the Ascension Glossary. And also thank you to our Crystal Star Guardian teams, those aligned with the Law of One mission, and to all Christos mission people for all of your hard work that you are doing to lovingly repair and heal the planetary dimensional layers back into its pristine natural form. And we also wanted to say that the lovely music at the beginning and end of the podcasts, unless otherwise stated, is created by a musical artist known as Holly May. So thank you to Holly May for this inspirational and healing music, which helps to support the energetic structure of the podcasts.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Holly.
And as well, we'd like to say that the mandalas that you see throughout the podcast and the teaching tools as well, unless otherwise stated, are created by graphics artists known as Chemo, and also graphics artist known as Sequoia. So thank you to Chemo and Sequoia for these beautiful works of art and these teaching tools, which help us to fortify the energetic structure of the podcasts and which provides us with visual aids to help us to better understand the ascension process.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you all who are helping us with this, and our listeners. Each time I open the podcast and hear the music, it touches my heart, and the beautiful mandalas that we have. So thank you,
Mm.
really appreciate it.
And lastly, we wanted to say thank you to all energetic synthesis members for the work that you are doing on yourselves and to support the healing of all beings during this ascension timeline window. So thanks in general to everybody. Much appreciation for all of you and your presence. Today our podcast is titled Owning Our Pain. And we felt it would be a good idea to demonstrate for our listeners some personal examples of how to take responsibility for our pain and trauma that we are harboring within, and how to work towards clearing it. Now, all of us have been wounded here on planet Earth, and most of us carry deep grief and trauma from the various stations of identity or lifetimes we've lived. And our difficult task is to face this pain and reclaim fragments that have split off, which are most likely also being manipulated by dark forces. Okay, this is the game that they play. So they are coloring our perceptions with negative overlays and keeping us depressed and feeling like victims. And so the Essene Divide is documented as an event that took place within humanity's hidden galactic history. And we feel it is directly relating to the pain and suffering that each of us presently faces. And we wanted to share this information to inform our listeners. And so we will now explain who the Essenes are and what the Essene Divide is, which contributes to the core suffering and trauma that we are all dealing with. Now, as mentioned in previous podcasts, our human galactic history includes participation within various galactic wars brought on by invading negative alien species. Okay, which then in turn formed the negative alien agenda, and that is comprised of both human and non-human participants. And during these galactic wars, our identities suffered fragmentation of light body parts and consciousness units, which became strewn throughout the dimensional levels within our universal time matrix, and thus being trapped in the planetary gates and astral plane. The human race is responsible for collecting and reclaiming these lost fragments of ourselves from these galactic wartime periods. Now, to help with this reclamation process, our ancient Essene or ancient Christos ancestors incarnated on planet Earth throughout our galactic history and were known collectively as the Orders of the Christ. These specific orders are known as the ancient Egyptians, Melchizedek priests, Knights of Solomon's Temple, the Essenes, the Cathars, and Christ Templars with their related esoteric sects. These are devoted humans who consecrated themselves to serve God by protecting spiritual knowledge and wisdom. And wanted to elaborate a bit on the definition of Christos. Christos extends way beyond all meaning associated with planetary consciousness, and it actually describes the state of our eternal cosmic consciousness. And this is the title given to a free cosmic citizen. So, did you have anything else to add to that, Trinity?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to the Order of Christ Templars. What you've said it beautifully, that they were the carriers of wisdom and knowledge, and they were incarnating again and again in dark periods. And we had a very dark cycle in the last 26,500 years with everything that's gone on here.
Yeah.
And they also carried the frequency of the mother of the Sophia, which is like we are emerging from this patriarchal dominion. You know, this is the distortion that we're all emerging from. The mother, the Sophianic principle, the female principle was removed. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that they actually, a lot of them were hunted, killed, you know, persecuted. A lot of them were sacrificed. You know, it's a very tragic kind of history that is linked to the Order of Christ Templars. And these are very courageous souls that actually came knowingly that they will be killed here.
Yeah.
But they came specifically so that this knowledge could be passed on verbally or in written form. They knew how the various portal systems were operating, so they were able to hide some of the knowledge. So they were knowledgeable, they knew, and they were the carriers of this gnostic wisdom. So I just want to pay homage to them and just, wow, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you to them. Much appreciation, much gratitude.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to add that obviously we're living in the polarity system. So of course we have the Order of Christ Templars, and of course we're going to have the Knights Templar, who would be the polar opposite of the Order of Christ Templars. And these are the secret societies now. So the timeline, major timeline trigger event for this secret societies Templars now, who would be opposing, hunting and killing the Order of Christ Templars, is the Celtic invasion 9,500 years ago. This is the latest one, the latest trigger event, when the negative alien agenda and Illuminati groups already existing attempted to create a super race of genetic elites. So this is where they somehow managed to hijack Rubisan DNA, and for their specifically propagated lines, they kind of evolved this elite Freemasonry, Knights Templars, Rosicrucians, Jesuits, all these kind of secret societies, groups. They were all kind of genetically tweaked with the Rubisan DNA, specifically kind of like generation after generation, so that and they were given the esoteric knowledge that was hidden from the masses, of course, but they were hiding it in their vaults, in their sort of underground places in Vatican. Obviously, it's all hidden there. But this is all was stolen. It was originally stolen from emerald tablets, which again, going back all the way, we're talking now 22,000 years ago, even before that. And all that esoteric knowledge that was stolen was used to service of self, to advance their agenda, to install these groups into the prominent positions in the government, in various sort of societal structures. They were infiltrated by these groups, and it exists to this day. So nothing's changed. So this was like to counteract the Order of Christ Templars and to make sure that they're all hunted and killed. We had to have that, and also to increase the control, or to have this control and make sure that humans are slaves who are controlled by these elite groups. And this also was possibly the seed of the spiritual superiority, because esoteric knowledge was always kind of linked to some kind of superiority within the ranks. It's very hierarchical how this service to self structures work. They're very hierarchical. The one below, militant, yes, the one below needs to obey the orders from the one above. The freedom of expression isn't something that is favored in these types of groups. So it's all, especially Jesuits. I mean, it's a military order that actually obeys orders, and there is an oath that they give, which is like terrific. What is in that oath? And it's very militant, and it's very brutal, and it's very Middle Ages. But for some reason, obviously, if humans were genetically tweaked to be kind of specifically bred for this type of purpose, then it's very difficult to kind of, well, it's probably not difficult to understand why compassion is totally kind of absent or switched off, because the compassion wasn't something which needed to be installed into these types of groups, especially as the mother, the female principle was totally removed from that. So if we remove the mother, if we remove the female, then of course compassion goes. Yeah. So this is
right.
Okay, so SonYA, if you have nothing to add, then we could move now a little bit sort of to Essene Divides, to explain a little bit in brief what is Essene Divide
Yeah.
timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Go with that.
So yeah. So Sonia's already mentioned that Christ consciousness isn't what a lot of people think. It's not specifically linked to a person, Christ. But I'm now going to be also adding to that and saying that Jesus Christ, as we know it, isn't exactly what we're told Jesus Christ is. And Jesus Christ is known in Gnostic circles as Yeshua, and was a Syrian blue human who came with his ground crew 2,000 years ago, part of the Essene tribe, came with his ground crew and his genetic equal wife, Mary Sophia. They came onto this earth plane with a specific mission. Both of them carried the embodied staff and wrought Christos coding, which means that they were both they both embodied the androgynous, unified feminine masculine instruction sets within their light body templates. Okay, it's a bit of a mouthful, but basically what it means that they had the female and male polarity totally unified within themselves, and they embodied that. And they brought with them as male and female physically embodied on this earth the rod and the staff. Because when female and male are unified within themselves and then they unify together in a physical plane, in a physical union, they become very powerful.
Yes.
They can create, they can do a lot of powerful things, a lot of powerful magic, but not the magic that is being corrupted and used to serve the self and alien agenda. But really, they both become like organic light technology that could do a lot of things. And this is what has been feared by all religions. And that's why we have a lot of misogyny, we have the sexual misery, we have the gender confusion, anything to split and not allow the female and male to integrate within and without. So it's just a little kind of side comment.
That's excellent. Think that's really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it really
Anything?
ringer right there. Really,
Yeah.
really honed in on that. It just felt really correct. That was really well said.
Thank you. So what was their mission? So part of their mission was to protect and repair the 11th dimensional Stargate and the 4th dimensional Giza Stargate. So of course they were Templars. They knew the Gruel points. They knew about the ley lines. They knew about the existence of Stargates on Earth. So they came here to protect, to repair from the already in existence Nibirian control of the Anunnaki and all other draconian factions that already were having a field day on Earth. What else they came here? They also tried, part of their mission was also to ignite and repair the blue flame staff and mother arc stargates on Earth. As we mentioned before, the mother was removed from Earth. We did not have a true organic mother. We have a reversal dark mother here, yes. That we had that AI dark reversal mother. But we didn't have really the true organic mother. So part of the Yeshua mission was to repair the blue stuff, the blue flame stuff and mother arc stargates on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
However, unfortunately, the mission was only partially successful, and during one of the kind of missions when they were trying to protect the 11th Stargate, the entire Yeshua team was ambushed by the Luciferian Knights, Templars, and Leviathan races in Amarna in Egypt. So that was very sudden and very tragic because a lot of
Mm.
the team were slaughtered and killed, and
Mm.
also the technology that they had technology that would enable them to access the stargates. That technology, which was brought by Yeshua and his teams, which were used to access the Stargate 11, they were placed directly into the hands of the NAA and Galactic Federation. So the NAAs already had partial control over the Stargates. Yeshua came to repair and being able to access and maybe protect them a bit more from them. However, that was total disaster in that respect, that, they were all killed, and some, well, not all, but a lot of them were slaughtered at the scene, and the light technology went straight into the hands of the NAA. So
Mm.
that was very difficult to take for a lot of Essenes. That was deemed as a failure, mission failure. There was a lot of guilt amongst the team members, amongst the Essenes. That was the seed, fear, that started sort of rippling. It wasn't the fear; it was this um, deep sadness, and it affected Essenes. This event, and it rippled through, and it created a weakness, and this is where the divide, this is where the alien, again, negative alien agenda just like went and capitalized on that and started sort of bringing the divide and conquer strategies, spiritual betrayal, the split, the all the pain associated with this event resulted then in negative aliens creating the almost, well, they created the Essene Divide construct on the phantom matrix levels, where we have
Okay.
like they basically, I'm not sure whether they cloned them, but they took the copies of the original blue flame holders and created like a black and white copy of them with the black tree of life, because we've got the organic tree of life, which is the 12 tree grid. It's a kind of morphogenetic um, blueprint of our consciousness, how it projects itself into this reality. Everything living has the morphogenetic blueprint. So they've created their own, the death, the black tree of life, which is like the 10. It's got the base 10 architecture. So, and they created then this kind of Essene divide construct, which then included victim, victimizer, divide and conquer. And since then, it was like staple within every spiritual group will be subjected to this at some point of their existence.
Mm.
And it split, obviously, it split the Essenes, it split
Okay.
it brought the seed of spiritual betrayal. And this is very much what we are all going through now. A lot of us who are in spiritual communities, and maybe even outside the spiritual communities, we're just exploring our faith in God, will come across some form of spiritual betrayal, whether the priest is going to become a pedophile and it'll suddenly break the faith in us because we didn't realize and we were putting our faith into that, on whatever level, how the spiritual betrayal is manifested. But the seed of that is this Essene divide construct in the phantom matrix, which came from that event. Um, I mean, of course, our human history isn't all cookies and strawberries. It's very painful. Even before that, we had a lot of killing and betrayals and lots of stuff going
Oh
on. But
yeah, all the galactic wars. I mean, there's
all
the
the
various
yeah,
galactic wars.
yeah. This was the
Yeah.
latest one. This was the latest one and especially affecting the spiritual communities and spiritual groups, because it happened within the spiritual, the family which came here to support each other and do their spiritual work. This conflict started germinating within that, the split, the divide, the betrayal. I would say it's one of the most painful betrayals linked to God. It is linked to your relationship to the divine. So if your guru betrays you, if somebody who you put your faith, if the priest betrays you, if somebody who guides you into the spiritual kind of world suddenly betrays you. That's quite painful. It's very painful.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what the aliens are trying to also bring here. Divide and conquer, their favorite strategy. They love it. I mean, wherever you look, we have this. Yeah, in everywhere we have this divide and conquer. Now we have the masks and not those who have masks, those who don't, those who vaccinate, those who don't. You know, wherever you go, there is always this kind of divide and conquer, and then we argue, argue, argue instead of uniting.
Okay, I see. Yes. You know, what comes to me too is, you know, that was really well said. I could really, you painted a really good picture. And then there might be a question of, well, okay, that might be true, but how, you know, why couldn't we make different choices? Or, you know, why do we fall prey to that? And to me, the reason is because, you know, there's this reversal technology that has been used, you know, all of this, I would say, psychotronic weaponry that's been used. And, you know, with the blank slating, the mind wiping, so that we don't remember our roots, so that we can't learn from our past mistakes. It's like these, what you had described as this Essene Divide structure being concocted and formulated in these phantom realms is then pulsed into people. It's
Yeah.
constantly being pulsed into people, and people aren't understanding how to, I would say, source their pain. You know, you know, and it's like repeating itself. You know, we've talked about this a lot. And I know that the ES community talks about this a lot, that these timelines are repeated. You know, these are the tools and tactics that these entities use to keep people repeating in these cycles, these constant pain cycles. So that's what comes to me as an answer as to why, well, why can't we learn from our mistakes? Well, why are we repeating this, and how could that be true? But that's where that blank slating technology again comes in, and where you can't remember what you've done and what happened. And there's, you know, there's half truths mixed in with full truths, with, you know, the history of who we are and where we've come from. And a lot of it's been removed so that we cannot access it. Like you said, you know, the Luciferian Knights Templar had access to the truth because they had stolen information. But they didn't pass it on to humanity. So now that we live in, you know, superstition, and we're relying upon these jaded religious teachings, you know, and you know, it's a filthy mess. It's just a filthy mess. Well, thank you, Trinity, for that information. That gives us a good background as to what, you know, has happened to us in our galactic history, and how the pain of all of those events, and the holographic inserts, and the impulsed thoughts, the possession, everything that has happened to us with the mind wiping, the mind slides, all of this reversal technology, this psychotronic warfare against our ancient ancestors, and how it has rippled down into our present time and what we are all dealing with here. And so we wanted to talk about the psychology behind owning our pain. So now we have a little bit of history, and we have been made aware of another piece of our humanity's hidden galactic history. Okay, this involves the painful Essene Divide of our human ancestors, and these painful memories are stored within collective humanity's cellular memories and blood records. And the trauma of these core seed events are played over and over within our unconscious memories, which surface as negative ego, inner self-hatred, victimizer, divide and conquer tactics, and other destructive behaviors, which are perpetuated and manipulated by the negative alien controller forces. We have to be willing to own our pain, and to look at our pain and accept that it's there, so that it will no longer have a grip on us. Unhealed trauma keeps us sick and doesn't allow for us to step into our true personal power. We can pretend that we are well and balanced and knowledgeable, but we are fooling ourselves and prolonging our suffering if we don't allow the inner traumas to surface for compassionate witnessing and healing. It seems that much of the time, fear and shame and guilt are the reasons that we are unwilling to air our pain. Now, me, speaking from personal experience, I used to feel fearful that others would judge me and speak harshly about me for the things I've participated in. And I didn't want people to know what I had done because it would reveal my shortcomings and weaknesses. For example, I would say, well, wait a minute, if I'm supposed to be a healer and a way shower, people will not take me seriously if I reveal my shadow side to them. And, a healer is supposed to know better than to have participated in the things that I've done. However, my personal transformation process has taught me to feel differently about that now. I no longer keep inside that which has shamed me, because harboring pain is equal to toxic poisons that fester and deepen the wounding. And to me, it causes further disconnection and lack of coherency. Unhealed trauma blocks the true light information or direct knowing from our consciousness. And we can be manipulated by dark forces, unable to tell the difference between false light imposters versus true organic spirit communications. Our pain body or inner shadow reveals itself differently for each person, depending on what it is that we have experienced. For example, as we go into deeper layers into our healing journey, we may feel ready to purge certain aspects of our pain body or our shadow self, such as, generally speaking, we could say some issues might be recognizing and clearing the pain body reactions from our wounded inner child that feels disempowered and angry due to childhood abuse. We may feel or find ourselves lashing out at others as the unhealed trauma rises to the surface to be witnessed. And however, if we can recognize our inner child wounding, we can hold love and compassion and gently guide ourselves to make controlled, calm responses instead of attacking with red anger reactions. Now, this takes practice and a willingness to remain calm and centered. So that would be one general example. And then another one might be purging our shadow side. Would include facing any guilt or shame that maybe we are harboring for things that we've done in the past. And so we may have done them in the past. We're not presently aligned with them, but I would say the goal would be to shed and clear any of that guilt and shame that we may be holding on to. So Trinity, did you have anything that came to you that you wanted to add about that?
Yes, because when you were saying about guilt and shame, to me, I was really getting a very strong kind of feeling that the guilt and shame and fear probably are the three culprits when it comes to dealing and facing and, sort of face to face with the pain or the shadow. The fear, guilt, and shame are the three culprits that prevent us, that stop us, that kind of put a block for us to do that. So yeah, totally could relate to that, and from my personal experience could say how them three prevented me for a long time to actually honestly be honest with myself and acknowledge my shadow or acknowledge some parts of me that perhaps I did not want to acknowledge, that had a lot of pain from the childhood or from other experiences. So the shame and the guilt, and they are directly linked to our sense of self. So again, this is all comes to our galactic history, of course, on a deeper level, but on a very kind of basic psychological level, it comes to this kind of how did we grow up as a child? Where did we have validation? Did we have praise? Did we have unconditional acceptance and love from the parent? Because if we didn't, then our sense of self is going to be weak. Our sense of self will be based on what we can do rather than what we are. So this is the key.
Okay, yes.
You see, if
Mm-hmm.
we are loved for who we are, no problem. We're strong. We don't mind shame. We could handle shame because it doesn't link to our sense of self. It's linked to our behavior. But if we were praised, if we grew up and we kind of were praised for our behavior, but we were not accepted deeply for who we are, then there will be this shame who will be like a block. This shame wouldn't, will stop us because our sense of self will not be strong enough to withstand the shame, because it takes strength to kind of withstand that feeling of shame or guilt or fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is primarily comes to like childhood traumas, and until we consciously start unpicking them and working on them, we will be always having blind spots. I mean, all of us have blind spots.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have, like, I don't know, when we don't have blind spots, we're self-realized. Yeah, because the shadow then will be all seen. But it's a consistent dismantling and realization of those blind spots, and this is where the honesty needs to be. But it needs to come, for me it was the process of building my sense of self parallel to me facing my fear, facing my pain. I couldn't face my pain until my sense of self was strong enough.
Okay.
So that's sort of something I wanted to add to that. I don't know, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, no, that
SonYA?
was good. That was good. And I think that we'll have more pieces that come to us as we go along through here, as we share, because there is more to be said on that. But yeah, no, that's good. That's good for now on that. So Trinity and I are now going to demonstrate what it looks like when we are willing to own our pain. Okay, we thought that would be helpful. And I'll go first, and then I'll pass it on to Trinity. So I'm going to share 2 examples of my own inner shadow self that needed to be witnessed and forgiven. And I'll explain how I have worked towards bringing these shadow aspects into healing and then into release. So the first example that I will share regarding my inner shadow involves sexual misery programming. Now, I used to carry around within me debilitating shame and guilt. We were talking about that just now, shame, guilt, and fear. But regarding the sexual misery incidences that I participated with. Now, a brief recap of that would be the entity possession that I suffered with due to a negative alien satanic blood covenant binding. Okay, this is all the black magic that we've been talking about throughout the podcasts. This is when the entities come in and they claim ownership over humans. Okay, one of the black magic spells, curses, manipulation of energy is called a satanic blood covenant binding. Okay, so I was indoctrinated into that, and it affected my entire biofamily bloodline. And from childhood, I was harassed and groomed and programmed by negative aliens in the sleep state, and also, or I was attacked by dark portaled individuals in the waking state to run a reversal dark mother persona, whereby I sexually abused animals. I played out a femme fatale and seducer to try and snare men. And I lied about having genital herpes and possibly passed it on to my partners. I didn't sell my body for money, but I did prostitute my body, mind, and spirit with deviant sexual thoughts and behaviors, ignorant of the consequences. All of my relationships failed, and 2 pregnancies developed which resulted in my choosing to abort the pregnancies because I was spiraling out of control. I was possessed, I was running a program, I was being run by dark force entities and engulfed in a negative alien breeder program to control my relationships, my sexuality, and reproductive process. Now, all of this is sexual misery programming and is a form of satanic ritual abuse. It's deliberately perpetuated by negative aliens and the fallen humans who are a part of the negative alien agenda. And the loosh generated from sexual misery is harvested by the negative alien agenda participants who use it to maintain their existence as they have severed themselves from creation source and have assimilated themselves into artificial intelligence. So they don't have the God force current running through their consciousness or through their beingness. They have to steal that loosh and they use that to maintain their existence. The NAA also deliberately reversed and controlled the female principle within both men and women in order to perpetuate a patriarchal, dominated, warring society for enslavement and control over humanity. So what I was trying to explain there is that all of what I had described is part of the sexual misery programming that is deliberately used by the negative alien agenda factions. And the bit at the end with snuffing out the female principle within men and women, that ties into what we were talking about earlier with the Essenes who came here, who were fully embodied with the rod and staff, the sacred feminine masculine within. And so the entities have tried to remove that from all of us, being very, I would say, I guess, jealous, but also they're very intimidated by that because they're not able to organically embody that themselves. So I knew I had to face down this sexual misery programming in order to take back my personal power. Okay. Now this wasn't easy because if you're indoctrinated into that as a child and you don't know any other way and you're running you've embodied inserts and your field is possessed and this is your level of consciousness. Okay. It was quite difficult for me to I would say to sort through and sift through that mess that I was. And it took lots of bravery and practice to own my pain. We talked about a little bit, you know, about the fear and the guilt and the shame. So I had all of that going on. And it was practicing. I had to practice owning my pain as my negative ego felt, you know, the fear and the shame. And I disassociated quite a bit when I first began purging. Okay, so disassociating meaning not really staying connected to the events, being able to stay connected to a certain degree, but then my mind would wander and I didn't really want to feel the pain of what I experienced and what I participated with. Okay, that's the disassociation. Now, my process involved writing out my experiences and sharing them with my bio family and with the general public. I also hosted a podcast where I talk about some of my sexual misery and possession experiences, and you can find this podcast within our podcast listing. I think it's called Sexual Misery Part 1.
Yes, yes,
Okay. And so I also found the courage to apologize to those that I hurt, and I asked for forgiveness. And by forgiving and loving myself and speaking publicly about my pain with an intention to release it, fragments started to come back in for integration. And as the darkness was witnessed and released, more light codes were able to pour in. And I started to feel more and more personal power and coherency return. So, sharing publicly our pain helps others who may be suffering as they can relate to our journey. Or if sharing publicly doesn't feel correct, then we can choose to privately journal our pain, as long as we are completely honest with ourselves. There has to be honest reflection and allowing our God eternal self to be our witness instead of someone else. So we can do it more privately, just with full authenticity and honesty. So both systems will work as long as we are willing to crack open that pain seal and dive in there and clear it out. So there's one more example I wanted to share, but did you have any comments that came up for you that you wanted to share, Trinity?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say that, like, listening to your story really resonated in terms of, like, I mean, it's great that at some point something in you obviously pushed you, or I don't know what was it that basically said, okay, enough is enough. I can no longer live like this. I can no longer be in this consciousness trap, or this kind
Mm,
of some kind of dissociated, distracted state where I'm like doing all these
mm,
things and not really processing them and deeply knowing on a deep level that this is not right, but
mm,
doing it and going on automatic. So maybe you could share with our
mhm,
listeners, is like, because some of them may be relating to your
mhm,
story and saying, gosh, good for you, how did you do it? Because how did you overcome that fear? How did you overcome that shame? So you're sitting and publicly even speaking about it.
mm, mm.
Maybe you could mention.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. It's interesting. It'll be different for each of us, of course. For me, what finally shook me out of it, and I mentioned this in my podcast, so whoever is interested can actually hear the full story. But it wasn't. I was just sitting in my apartment one day, and this was quite a few years ago. I've been on the healing journey for a while now, but I just remember sitting in my apartment one day, and all of a sudden, I just got this pinpoint of consciousness that came to me. So it's almost like my eternal God self helped me out there. Watched me go through the struggles and the pain to learn. We go through these things for various reasons, right? I being a genetic path cutter for sure, helping my bio family to rid themselves of this blood covenant satanic binding on the bloodline. I was able to glean, a lot about the negative alien agenda through all of this, through personal experience. And I mean, I can really speak to it. And so, um, I guess, suddenly all of a sudden, my eternal self said, you've had enough and you're stuck. And here it is. Bing. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it came to me, and I was literally running a program. I could not see myself. I kept cycling over and over into all these disastrous relationships. I couldn't break out of it. I didn't realize that I was stuck in that rut, this consciousness trap. So to say that consciousness can be altered is absolutely true. Consciousness can be programmed, it can be possessed, it can be run by others. There's a violation of single soul occupancy that goes on so that you're not inner sourcing. So I was being run. And when that happened, the pinpoint of consciousness came in. That is when I realized, oh my gosh, what I had done and what I had been participating within. And so it will be different for each person. For me, when I found that out, truth was the most important thing to me. To say that I mentioned this as well in my podcast, but I felt like I died. I felt like death. I felt so horrible for what I did and for all the people that I hurt. And, you have to go through that. And I went through stages of disassociating with that. And, but I you just practice, you continue to try to stay in your body, you practice what you've done, you practice feeling the pain of the facts of the situation. just practice that. That's what I did. And because truth is so important to me, I didn't want to contribute anymore to any more suffering. Once I was able to release that programming, I said, okay, now it is my time to heal myself. And I just took it incrementally in stages. And I just kept practicing, peeling away the layers, well, this was before I joined energetic synthesis. I started way before that. But I just started being honest with whatever I did and I said. Honesty, that's where, and I kept building on honesty. And as I did that, the fragments came back. And when fragments come back, that's when coherency comes back. Coherency means that you can see the forest from the trees. Not everything blends together, because when so I love that phrase. I always like to say that. Before I couldn't see the forest from the trees. Okay. With the fragments coming back in to seal up the holes, to return my consciousness memories, that is when I could sense more of the actual truth, the divine truth, not this watered down or false light truth. That's when, so by being honest with, what I participated in, having forgiveness for myself, the fragments came in, okay? Coherency started to come in, and healing, greater and greater healing, and you build upon that. You just continuously build. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. I mean, I was listening and it was giving me hope,
Okay.
because, there is always more to clear, more to clear, more to get rid
Yeah.
of, more to face and witness. And so yes, so beautiful. Thank you. I mean, this is a very inspiring story, because we will always be given an opportunity, always. That benevolent higher self of ours, that's our, God presence, God self will always lovingly nudge us, and no judgment. It will not be any judgment. It will be just nudging us into the direction, along the direction of truth, expansion, love, everything that we are. So, so this is a good example, and it's a message of hope that no matter, sometimes we have to go down before we could start going up, sort of thing. So sometimes we have to hit the bottom before we can start going. So for you, what you were describing, that's it. That sitting in that room and receiving that pinprick, it was just like, right, this is my bottom. There's no more to
Yeah,
go. That's
that's
it.
true.
Yeah. And then from then you started moving, and all of us will have that. For me, it was something else. I did not want to look at my I did not want to look at my pain. That's it. I'm spiritual. I am meditating. Forget it. I am already halfway there. Don't talk to me about pain. And what happened? Somebody came and boom, prick that. That was painful as
Broke that
well. So
bubble.
broke that bubble, yes. And like you said, usually what follows is a little dismantling, like mini death of
Yeah.
what you knew. But we should, don't be afraid of it. Like, I'm talking to our listeners, don't be afraid, because we are held so lovingly at every step. And the 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 kind of, when we get to truth, when we get to that authenticity within ourselves, it's amazing. It's just like, it's
Yes.
worth all that pain, all that kind of pain of dismantling
Oh,
is worth
oh
it,
my
because look
gosh.
where where you are, where we are in our journey.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for that. Thank you. That was a very good example.
of owning our pain. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Well, I
And being
had one
courageous
other,
and
well, thank you.
mhm.
I'll take more compliments. What what were you saying?
Yeah, being honest, just sort of like, because you could have like, when you had that pinprick, you could have just said, nope, I am not listening to you. No, I don't want to. I'm going to go and have my biscuit. I'm going to have my cookie and whatever. I'm just going to distract
Ah,
myself. I do not want to listen to you. So I'm just, um, yeah, inspiring our listeners to do not ignore it. So when you get that pinprick, go for it.
yeah.
It's worth it.
Well, I had one other short example of owning our pain, and then I wanted to pass it on to you to enlighten us about how you've dealt with some certain circumstances in your life and how you dealt with it. So, hopefully these examples are helpful to our listeners, on the actual steps we can take when we're facing that dark night of the soul, and so we don't have to spiral out into never land and not ever come back. There's ways that we can anchor in and deal with this. And so we're hoping that we can inspire people with these stories. So the second inner shadow self example that I will share involves my wounded inner child. Okay, so who sometimes has a pain body reaction when I hear other people receiving compliments or praise. Now, I didn't like this about myself, of course, and I truly do want other people to be recognized. Um, but I couldn't help feeling a stabbing pain each time it would happen. So, by my divulging this truth to you, to the listeners, to you, Trinity, and to the listeners as my witness, what I'm doing is I am removing the power that it has over me. And I'm shining the light of truth upon this inner wounding that I am willing to take a look at and where it's sourcing from. So, as I have contemplated, gone into meditation about this, thought about it, I feel it was stemming from childhood abuse and other timelines whereby my power was taken away and I was silenced. And this ties a lot in with the throat chakra. I've had lots of issues with it. There's been an implant, painful implant in my throat chakra. I think it ties into that, and very likely also ties into the Essene Divide conflict that our Essene ancestors went through that was discussed earlier, because we're all connected, and then again, we talked about how the inserts and the AI and the mind wiping, blank slating, erasing our history. We don't know about that, right? We've been disconnected from direct knowing, but still, you carry that in your blood record. Okay, that's what's so bizarre about it all, is that you still carry that, and you don't know where it's stemming from, and why are you having these reactions? Why can't I get a hold on this? Why does this keep I would say sneaking up behind me, and it's like this automatic pain reaction? Okay, well, I at least was able to recognize that something needed to be done about it, because that was unhealthy. So I started there, and so I've chosen to own my pain by bravely admitting that I have this hang up. And that in turn deflated the control it had over me. So I chose to shine light and forgiveness to override this pain body reaction. And I've been consciously participating with practicing being open and supportive when others are being complimented and praised. So that was another short example. Did you have anything to add on that?
A lot, but I have to, we don't have like whole day today, but I mean, again, the two words, love and forgiveness, right? You mentioned just now you had to shine the light, and then you had to accept it in love and forgiveness, to forgive yourself and integrate it. The shadow, that
Yeah.
aspect had to be integrated with love and forgiveness. And this is what I would like to sort of bring up, because we have this love and forgiveness versus judgment, criticism,
Mm-hmm.
punishment,
Mm-hmm.
um, fear. Oh my God! Oh my God! I'm not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a way shower, like you said. I'm supposed to be. I'm a healer. Oh my God! And I'm having these reactions when somebody is like successful. Oh my God, that's unacceptable. Okay, okay, get rid of it. Take it away. I'm not feeling it. So push it away. Put it in the darkness somewhere in the shadows.
Okay, yeah.
Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what negative alien agenda has done with this negative ego construct. It created the construct with rules. So suddenly, instead of just having love and forgiveness, like, oh, I'm feeling a bit jealous. Oh, okay, where is it coming from? Maybe my inner child. Okay, love and forgiveness. I'm forgiving. I'm integrating. I'm shining the light of it. That's okay. I know why. Okay, so I need to give my child something to this is one approach, but the
Mm-hmm.
negative ego construct, no, 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 it has not, no love, no forgiveness. It has to be split. It creates a split.
Mm-hmm.
I have to create a shadow now because it's not acceptable, because my ego construct tells me it's not good to be jealous. It's not, you're supposed to be glad. My ego tells me I'm supposed to be glad when other people are successful. It's the rule my ego tells me. Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And with that comes judgment, comes fear against what my ego going to do to me? Oh no, because because the society, because the people are going to judge me. So it's very clever how this ego construct was installed into the planetary body, and of course installed in all of us, which is totally inorganic.
Mm-hmm.
And this is now, we have to have courage to let go of it. And this is what we're doing here, hopefully helping, inspiring us and others. We are ourselves treading this, but like having
Mm-hmm.
courage and inspiration, and kind of to let go of that fear of judgment. Because SonYA, you could have said, okay, I'm not going to share this because I'm afraid, because it's going to be public, people going to judge me, and it's really unacceptable, and I'm supposed to be this.
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, no, I'm not having this. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want any of that. I want to be loving and accepting, and I want it to be seen, because okay, this is the emotion that I felt, and I want to be transparent. So, and this is your natural self.
Mm-hmm.
This is your true, authentic self, which is not afraid. It's just expressing itself. It's just expressing it. Okay, it felt that. Okay, it knows where it came from.
Yeah.
So I just, yeah, it's just, I just wanted to make that comparison and say, guys, the time has come for us to abandon our inorganic ego structures. We have nowhere to judge us. We just have to be authentic as much as we can, and with love and forgiveness, keep integrating these parts of ourselves. I always mention the sun. The sun loves us no matter who we are. The sun loves killers. The sun doesn't kill, if somebody goes and kills, the sun still shines on them, which is a crime, but the sun still doesn't discriminate. So there is this unconditional love for all. The judgment and the, maybe not the judgment, but maybe the light of consciousness comes from within, and this is what is the true benevolence, and the true kind of love is unconditional. It shines on everyone equally, and it's up to us whether we would like to take that, or whether we would like to separate ourselves and continue with path of darkness. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just trying to say that the everything which is of light, it's expansive and it's non-judgmental, never judges. So if we feel fear of judgment or fear of exposing ourselves, it is coming from the ego construct, some sort of fear. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, thank you. If you feel comfortable sharing, I'm looking forward to hearing some of your shares, and then I'll probably have things to comment on.
Okay, well, I have a couple. I have many, but I wanted to kind of choose the ones that probably going to be the most kind of relevant. So the one I have, which is triggering me at the moment, is this blind obedience of the just generally blind obedience triggers me immensely because I was brought up in a totalitarian regime with the false parent, the government, the governmental structures where they're like the false parent who would bully and oppress. So so for me, observing now this blind obedience when people do not really research anything and just put those masks and run for those vaccines without actually researching properly and listening to the doctors and research and listening to the scientists who are actually saying, hey, wait, look, the virus has never been isolated, so how can you even create a vaccine for something that hasn't been isolated? So look, it just doesn't add up. Masks don't really work. So what is this all about? So for me, this is a major trigger because, and what this trigger does, it makes me very angry and frustrated. And obviously, naturally, I want to sort of project this anger and frustration on the people, right? I want to kind of say, gosh, you are so silly. How can you just follow this BS that is fed to you through the media? How can you, all this kind of dialogue is going on in my head and giving me this sort of boiling anger and frustration and also sadness.
Mhm.
So for me, I had to go through the process of asking myself, so why am I projecting this on other people? Where is it coming from? And I had to access the inner pain within myself, that girl, again, it's coming from my childhood, who has been oppressed, who has been false parented and the government telling her what to do, and she was scared and she was obedient. See, so
Mhm.
I was projecting my anger at the people for being obedient without actually owning my own behavior, that I was obedient also.
Oh, I see.
Do you see? So until I actually realized that, yeah, once I've realized that, I kind of, oh, I can't be angry at them anymore because I was there too. It's in me as well to be obedient
Mhm.
and to obey and to be blindly kind of doing this. So once I've realized that, then obviously instead of having the anger, now I actually feel compassion and maybe a little bit sad for people, but I don't really feel anger because anger is dividing me and putting me into this position, holier than thou, are you stupid? I mean, that's not Christic. That's division. That's
Mhm.
dividing. They're my brothers and sisters. They're just mind controlled. And I've been there too.
Mhm.
So it's like by accepting this within myself, I was able to own my pain. I was able to own this
Mhm.
particular character trait, my obedience. And immediately all that trigger dissolved. It is
Oh.
dissolved.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 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 Because I
Mm.
kind of, because I've integrated it within myself. So I see these people just now with compassion and trying to help as much as I can.
Mm.
But ultimately, it's everyone's choice. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So that's my one example. Yeah, I don't know. I have a few more examples. My another example I wanted to mention, I was in the false ascension matrix for quite a while. I was following some kind of teachings, and a lot of it was good, and a lot of it was a mixture of everything. But if you look to the core, there was some kind of degree of misrepresentation. And again, when I started realizing that, I was filled again with anger. I wanted to blame. I wanted to blame them. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to vent all that immediately, you know. And the more I was looking at myself, the more I was asking myself, well, why? Why? What part did you play in that dynamic? And I realized that, yeah, I was enabling the dynamic because it was convenient for me, because my inner child needed whatever I was getting there. So I had to own my own denial. I had to own my own shadow. I had to own my own kind of like go with the flow and delude yourself type of, um, again, dynamic within myself. So until I've done that, I wanted to blame and I wanted to be angry. But again, once I've owned that part, took me time, took me time. But once I've owned that, again, I kind of appreciate and sort of I can appreciate and love them for who they are, for what they've provided for me, for the part that they played in my life. There is no judgment there. There is no, they are where they are. I'm sure they did their best, like all of us. We're all manipulated and mind slided here. So they did the best to the best of their ability, and I enabled that dynamic and I owned that. So now I only have good things to say and forgive and forget and let go. Like SonYA said, forgive, love, forgive and forget, let go, integrate.
Mhm.
So that was my another example
Yeah.
on
And it takes
pain.
courage, though, doesn't it? I mean, it takes courage to, I guess my question for you would be, I don't know if you can share a little more, like at what point were you able to realize that you were you were allowing this relationship that was based in false light, um, and you were getting something from that because your inner child needed that at the time.
Yeah.
But at what point were you able to recognize and, that this was no longer resonating for you? And are there more specific steps that you took for your personal journey and how that happened?
I think it was kind of a little bit similar to yours in a sense that somehow whatever was happening probably in a planetary on Earth at the time with the grids, with the more plasma light streaming, it was around 2011, 2012, 2010, things started coming in. It just I started sort of seeing more and more and feeling that something's not there. But then I had to have my tsunami prick, like you had your prick of consciousness. I had the external prick that came into my life where all the structure started breaking, and that's when I kind of started looking at it from a different perspective and gradually coming to terms that it is something that is not in alignment and something that I need to really face and somehow stop enabling. So I think for me it was similar to yours but slightly different, that I had an external event that made me start like turned me around, that I could no longer deny. So I just want to say to our listeners that our higher self, our God self, God, Mother, Father, love, they love us so much that throughout our life we will be given the opportunity to correct ourselves. So if we, I was holding with my shadow as long as I could. I was 44, 43, 44, 42, that was the time, for 40 years I was existing in the shadow. So there were times when I was pricked, but I didn't want to look. I didn't want to look. I didn't, but then that was, that's it. That was like,
Mm.
I came to I held it as long as I could. I
Mm-hmm.
held it as long, but then
Yeah.
I couldn't. Yeah. So, and I think now it's more difficult now. I think before 2012, maybe it was easier to kind of get away with it. But
Yeah.
after 2012, especially when the mother energies came to the planet, 2013, very difficult. The shadow is just like there in your face. You just have to deal with it. You just have to do something about it.
Hmm.
And it's intensifying, more and more, sort of becoming more transparent.
What comes to me is social engineering, as well. What people have been, I would say, what is keeping the mind control, the mind slides intact. It's the whole package that these entities have concocted and have been deliberately using against humanity. I mean, when people start to wake up and just realize that they have been socially engineered, I think that this is one of the reasons we're doing these podcasts, to give a few tools to let people know that it's going to be shocking when you start to wake up and realize that you have been living in a, as it's called, a death culture and an enslavement matrix, and you haven't really been free, and you thought you were, and there's all of this very, very dirty corruption going on behind the scenes. So that comes to me, when you were speaking, the social engineering, and as well, the fear of also stepping into our power. You had talked about, following kind of the false light, for a while. It felt correct for you, but then you were ready to step out of that. You felt this pinprick of consciousness come in, and yours was actually a physical event that happened, but it impacted you. So you were ready to shift. Yeah, and I can just imagine, as I was listening to you, that takes courage to then step into our power. Because for myself, when I was listening to you, I could relate, and I was thinking, my gosh, I had all of this programming in my consciousness to remain quiet and buttoned up, because the entities really, I would say, projected heavy consciousness enslavement within me to remain quiet and to remain in the background, so that I would not come forward with any information. So it really takes a lot of courage to then, it's a process. You have to build on that. I mean, would you say that it was a process for you, that you had to start
Yes.
building?
Yes, because the pinprick came about 2009, and I would say it was about 2014 when I finally kind of dismantled that particular piece. So it took me 5 years to process and dismantle and my resistance and then but yeah, so for me it was quite a process to understand all that, and understand my understand what exactly what was my need. How was I using them? You see, I was projecting, saying, oh, they used me, they abused, no, they used me, they misled me, they did this to me, all that kind of victim, vulnerable child mentality. But as soon as I ask, how did I do the same to them? How did I enable them? How did I, and that's when this is when the work started. When I started asking this question, how did I, all this that I'm projecting on them, now I'm turning on myself. How did I mislead them? Well, yeah, I was a pleaser. I was like a little bit of a morpher, I would morph and I would be a pleaser because I needed validation. So I was misleading them, you
Okay,
see? But I was blaming them until I owned my pain and my shadow.
I see.
And once I've owned that, then suddenly I love them now. I'm like, good God, good for you guys. You helped me as well at the time.
Okay.
So
Wow, that's a very interesting point. Now that you broke it down, I see what you mean by that. How were you enabling them? You were actually feeding that. Would you say that that was part of your pain body? It was a
yes,
part of your unhealed
yes.
pain body, and
That was also my orphan complex, right? Because it's like
okay.
I never had like a proper family. So I wanted desperately to have a family, and that was a family. And I got the validation from my parents within the community. So it was like it was feeding a lot of my child's needs. And until I realized that and took responsibility for that, I was ready to blame them.
Hmm.
But when I stepped into the adult state and the power and took responsibility, I was like, hey, they, they did the best they could. They were, I was also there participating in all that. And I had my needs. I was
Hmm.
using them.
Hmm.
Yeah. So once you realize your part in it, the blame goes. You don't
Hmm.
project anymore. You just accept, love, forgive, forget,
Hmm.
forget, and move on.
Hmm.
So this was my process. Yeah.
I would say too that part of the process or a healthy processing would be that if two people, or if it's more, if it's a group, if it's two people, whoever it is, are willing to compassionately, I would say, discuss the pain, sometimes could help. So maybe that's not the dynamics of everyone's situation. Maybe you just say, okay, I'm stopping my membership. It depending, because you were talking about a group that you were involved in, I think. Is that what you were saying? It was a group?
Mm-hmm.
So it might just be ending your, I mean, depending on the dynamics of the situation, but I can see how that would be sufficient, but I can also see how sometimes it might be beneficial for the people who are involved to compassionately talk about it, owning our pain. This is what this podcast is called. And saying, this is how I feel. I feel pain. I feel betrayed. I feel hurt, but not coming from a blaming, coming from a, this is, owning your feelings. This is how I feel. And then being willing to listen to other people and how they feel. And then I would say just having compassion through the whole thing, having patience and compassion. And I think that one of the biggest fears that I see happening within myself, I can speak for myself, my own process, and other people around me too, is this fear of needing to be right. The fear of needing to be
Mm.
right, the fear of people not, and I suppose it's because maybe we feel like, you know, like you said, we need to be validated, and we're not being validated, and there's a fear of that, but I know I'm right. And I think that there's some truth to both sides of that. It's okay to feel a certain way and to I would say, own your truth. If you feel strongly about something, own your truth. But I think that it would be beneficial to own the truth, but to also hold patience and compassion for other points of view, because I really don't see it working any other way. If we're all these unique consciousness strands, that have been through these various circumstances, right, that have molded us to be the people that we are, I really don't see people, I don't see it working any other way. Sometimes we just have to listen to one another and agree to disagree. Well, I mean, what do you say to that?
I think yes. I think you're absolutely right, and it helps if two people are willing to be transparent, because what usually happens in like farm circles, that those who are at the top, they obviously do not wish to be transparent because there is a hierarchical structure. So this is it. The old structures of this false ascension matrix, they're all based on hierarchical structure. Somebody's at the top who's like, and people are at the bottom. So there is no, the dialogue, the equal dialogue of transparency cannot take place. So that lesson taught me a lot. So I like it taught me to discern this very, very subtle power dynamic between people and within circles, because we are moving as humanity. We are moving into the self-sovereignty, self-sustainability. We are moving into being um, our own self without sort of external power dictating to us, because this guru disciple dynamic, master disciple, master, teacher disciple, teacher student, this is all kind of like leaving us now. We need to source from within, not from external. In dark ages that worked, but not now. We are moving on the next cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I just wanted to say, that yes, it helps when within the groups there is this transparency and the to, everybody is equal, although there is some kind of, somebody's got different, they all have different roles, but they're equal. And at the time when I was there, in my example, I did not feel that equality. Maybe because I wasn't yet ready to be an adult and have an adult conversation. So I'm just adding to what you said, that yeah, it's great to talk, but both parties need to be willing to own their own shadow. And if only one party does this and another party holds that little upper hand of like, actually you tell me, but I'm not telling you anything, then it becomes again a power dynamic to be used and abused again. And we're all healing the trauma of betrayal and the trauma of trust. So I just wanted to add that.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, it's excellent. Wow. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about with your shares?
Well, just want to really encourage our listeners, encourage those who might resonate with this material, if encourage to not be afraid of being transparent, not be afraid of being authentic with your darkness and your light. The darkness is only darkness until the light shines on it. And nobody's judging us. We are at the age of transparency. I mean, look at the surveillance that is like increasing its pace upon us. You can't even step out of the door without being cameraed and photographed, and it's all there. So transparency with ourselves. So not be afraid of it. Step into it. It's fine. We're all linked. We're all connected, and we are not bad. Human race is actually beautiful. We are not bad. Our original template is beautiful. So all that mind control, all that histories, all that pain, or everything that we've done, nobody's going to judge us. We just need to step into power, be transparent, not be afraid. Just walk our path.
Well said. Yeah, I would agree with that. And then I would say that my ending comments would be to reiterate that the importance of doing just what you just said, which is the reason that I had shared some very personal details about myself with the sexual misery programming. Most people are shy away from that because, it's too painful to talk about. And I would encourage people to rethink that. Because like you had said just now, Trinity, is that, people may judge us, but we don't have to let that bother us, because to me, I'll tell you just from my own personal take on this is, it may be so that people may judge me for what I have exposed, or disclosed. However, I have learned from personal experience that when I shine the light on my darkness, that is what causes it to transmute or dissipate. It starts to heal. It starts to clear. It's like you take, it's like the light is shining. This could be the darkness. The light is beaming down, And now the darkness can't hide in the corners and in the shadows anymore. It can't hide behind the doors, right? And so the light is shining right on that, and it goes, ah, right? And it just kind of like starts to disappear, and there it goes. And now here's the beautiful light, you know? So it's almost like an alchemical process. If you can think of it in scientific terms, it's like alchemy. It actually transmutes the darkness. And again, to reiterate that once I started doing that, the fragments started coming back. That's when greater coherency comes. That's when the personal power comes in. It starts to anchor in, because we don't have this shadow that is, I would say, it's overlaying everything. It's overlaying our perception, okay? The shadow overlays our perception. It starts to paint this false perception of reality. Okay, and then you remove those tainted glasses that was painting a false reality. Okay, you remove that by clearing that shadow, and then the light comes in, and you're able to feel. You're able to see the forest from the trees. You can differentiate the false light from the organic light. So yeah, to reiterate what you said, have the courage, come in, be transparent as much as you can. If you can't do it in public, then do it in a journal, but just be willing to crack open that pain seal. Be willing to take a look honestly and authentically at what you've participated within. Even if it was something I used to say, oh, that was against my will, it's not my fault, and I was programmed and I was possessed, and oh, I'm not going there, and I'm angry. And that's one way of looking at it. Okay, and in partial, that is true partially, right? Okay, in many ways, we could have been held against our will, and abduction occurred and all that. Okay, that is true, but you're still stuck there until you get yourself out of it. Like you said, Trinity, nobody's coming along with a little wand and going whoosh, 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 and clearing the pain from you. So you're still stuck. At some point, if it feels resonant, we can step into that personal power and start taking responsibility for that pain, wherever it stems from, wherever it comes from. Still step into that. And a way to do that is to just be authentic. Be authentic. Don't be afraid. And the last thing I can say, what just came to me now, is I guarantee that there are probably millions of people, probably billions. We're up in the what? I don't know, 7, 8 billion people on the planet right now. Is that where we're at kind of right now? Millions and billions of people can relate to my story in a different way. Okay, I shared some sexual misery programming, and sexual misery has affected us, all of us, in various ways, in different ways, right, at different levels. And I didn't even tell all of what I've experienced. Maybe that'll come in later podcasts, but I expressed some things. Some people are going to hear my story and say, well, that's nothing compared to what I've experienced. Well, okay, let that be, maybe planting a seed for you to begin your healing journey. Take a look at your pain, because sexual misery is rampant. It's a rampant sickness on our planet today. It's affecting everybody on different levels. So shine the light on it. So generally speaking, I'm just saying that when you shine, like you said, when you shine the light upon your pain, if you're transparent, that is when healing starts to pour in.
Yeah. And this is where the alchemy and growth and expansion and the joy comes in. We free the room for greater things to come onto us when we do this. And the strength as well. We become strong. Our core strengthens with transparency, with this truth that we begin to embody. We begin to embody the truth, and the truth spirit is strong. So well said. Thank you. Thank you, SonYA.
Thank you. Thank you as well for sharing. Much appreciation. Well, I think that we may be at the end of the podcast. If you feel ready, we can wrap up.
Yep, wrapping up.
Okay, so we want to say thank you to our listeners. Thank you for bearing with us. We tried to be as coherent as possible. We're both a little bit tired today, I think. We've had some rather large events happen today. So thanks, and we hope that this has been helpful. And we so appreciate all of you as well. And we wish you love and blessings. And so until next time, we will see you again.
Yes.
And Trinity, did you want to share the closing prayer, or?
You can.
No, we do.
I can participate.
I can do it.
I'll participate. Yeah.
Okay, I got it right here. Let me just pull it up. Okay. Okay, so we'll just get into a quiet space and we'll just seal the podcast with a closing prayer. Beloved Mother God, Father God, Sophia Christos, that which we are, eternal Christ family serving the law of one. Please amplify our prayer request. As the avatars of Christ Sophia and the truth spirit that we are, for one and for all, we pray for the sovereign rights of all humanity to be restored to Mother God, Father God's natural laws on this earth. May all of those that are awakening, feeling betrayed, confused by this Antichrist war that is playing out, we lovingly decree that their hearts are healed, their spirits reclaimed in the power of our Holy Mother, Holy Father, that has returned to this earth. May we stand strong with love and courage, bringing coherence to every level of their consciousness, remembering the truth of the infinite God spark, that which we are. We pray on behalf of our children that the harvesting of Lush end completely. Please free humanity of enslavement, deception, and entrapment from the psychopathic death cults. We ask for divine right, order, and harmony on the Disclosure Ascension timeline. In unity, we will prevail. May the truth set us free. We are the cosmic Christ. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Thank you, God.